Hi and welcome to our fourth video blog. Again, as always, our focus is on the attraction, engagement and retention of key female talent. So today our focus is very much on the engagement and the retention of talent, as we're discussing why so much talent is leaving the corporate world behind to set up alone. In relation to keeping women in and in relation to blend, we are particularly interested in understanding if talent is leaving the corporates because of an unsustainable blend, or if they are moving towards the startup environment because they're in search of a more fulfilled blend.
So in true Keeping Women in style, we set about interviewing women who would give us an understanding of whether which of these was actually the case.
In addition to that, we interviewed some men, because I think at this point, whilst the data supports there's much more of a trend and significant numbers coming from women leaving corporates to set up alone, this is relevant to men and women. So in addition to asking these people, we also went out and sought data from external sources. So we identified three that we thought were most interesting. The first piece is first piece of data is from the CIPD, in that since 2008 there's been a 20% increase in female entrepreneurship, whereas for men has been 4%.
And I think that's interesting, because I think women for a long time have been trying to change the way that they want to work. We've had lots of supporting evidence around that and data to tell us that they've been trying to push that change through. And typical, I think of our gender is that when we can't solve something, we seek ways to improve that for ourselves. So they've gone out and they've started up their own businesses in a way of trying to solve that issue. Absolutely,
it brings it back into sort of cultural justification. Absolutely. And based on that, I think the second piece of data that I thought was really interesting is it's from a company called Crunchbase, and in 2009 there were 9.5% of startup companies are founded by women. And in 2014, 18% of those companies are founded by women. So, and they Crunchbase, their data is based on companies that have gone out and raised external finance. So these aren't kind of bedroom projects. These are very significant startups that have raised finance. So the third piece of data is that women, by 2018, women are going to create over 50% of the jobs in small businesses.
And I think that's very topical right now, because Kleinwort Benson just issued a report outlining that women are more successful in that small startup entrepreneurial style than men.
They're more likely to succeed.
Yes.
And there's argument to say that this risk of failure that tends to be more associated with women than it does with men actually serves as a very positive trait when you're in a startup
in that situation. Environment.
As a business coach, and as any coach would know, that people are motivated in one of two ways. So people are either motivated by moving towards something or motivated by moving away from something. So, and that's what I was referring to with are people leaving corporates because they're moving away from the environment they're currently in because it's not sustainable, or are they moving towards a brighter future, if you like, so a more fulfilled blend? So we put it to the test through interviewing lots of my clients and lots of people in our network. Through the interviews, there were so many different variances on the reasons why they're moving from corporates to startups, but I think it's useful just to provide you with a summary of what those were. So the main one was progression. The second one was effective leadership. The third was office politics, interestingly, moving away from office politics or wanting to go into an environment where they didn't have it. The ability to work from home. The desire for a fulfilled life blend, to be in an environment where output is valued over presenteeism, And I think they're the kind of,
Yeah,
they were the key ones that came out of it. And we're going to discuss now two people that I think represent the sample as a whole.
Yeah.
So firstly, I'm going to talk about a client of mine called Simon. He is very, very successful in the city, earns a huge amount of money, is very bright, very articulate, very ambitious, absolutely in their talent pool. He will be tipped to, go far in the business. He has decided that he is going to leave the organisation and he's going to set up alone. Now, I wanted to, dig deeper into that and to understand exactly why. He had a child 18 months ago. He wants to move out of London. He doesn't want to factor a long commute into his blend because that would take up quality time with his child. There isn't really the option to work from home. He wants to, risk is really important to him, so he wants to take a risk. He wants to progress quickly. And he's hungry to move forward. So his way of doing that is, whilst everything is great where he is and he's enjoying that and he's doing very well, his drive now is to move towards a more fulfilled blend because his circumstances have changed. His blend has got some additional elements in it and he wants to move towards that. When I questioned him about whether or not he would consider staying if his current organisation or if his leader had sat down with him, discussed his blend, discuss how things have changed, discuss what he wanted, would he stay? And he said he probably would, yeah. So to me, that organisation, because they're not talking about it, not acknowledging it on a micro level or on a bigger scale, are losing that talent.
And I recently spoke to somebody, Susan, who actually is probably the opposite end of that. She's in a position where her blend is just not sustainable. So she had outgrown, so she works in a public sector environment, she works lots of shifts, she's always worked for a manager who's allowed her to have her shifts fairly fixed. That's been great for her. She's got 2 young children, but she'd outgrown the role. So she wanted, and she was ambitious, she wanted to move on in the organisation. So she went for a better role within the organisation, she got it, still working shifts, got that role. Her new manager was less flexible and said, in this role you cannot have a fixed shift. So she found herself with 2 young children working on Christmas Day. Susan tried for a year, and her husband, so much so it affected her relationship with her husband.
Yeah. Which it absolutely does, because we can see that through the research.
Yeah, and she sat down with her husband and they agreed that it just wasn't working. So she actually left, retrained, and now she's got her own interior design business and she works the shifts that she wants to work.
Actually, what Susan was doing, her decision to set up the interior design company was to move away from a business that created this unsustainable blend.
Yeah.
That explains so well how life impacts work and how work impacts life. So it created an environment that just wasn't sustainable, so she had to leave. Okay, so then we look at Simon and then we look at Susan, and actually both of them are leaving successful companies and are both extremely good at their job, would be regarded as key talent in that business, leaving that to set up on their own. Simon is doing it because he's seeking more of a fulfilled blend, and Susan is doing it because her blend is unsustainable. So actually their drivers are different, and this is something that we found when we interviewed everybody. Their drivers for doing it are that there was no pattern in whether they were towards or away from, but what the one sort of common denominator in it was blend.
Yeah.
So in that circumstance, can the business do anything to retain them?
And that's, I think that's the trend here, isn't it? It's kind of going back to, and both Susan and Simon needed a conversation with their line manager. Simon to say, look, my circumstances have changed. I need to do something else. I'm still as committed. I'm still as ambitious. Yeah. But something has to change in order for me to, look at that kind of, as we would call it, a brighter future. For Susan, it was an understanding of, I'm not trying to be difficult here, but I'm really passionate about what I do. I enjoy what I do, but my personal circumstances mean I just need a shift pattern that's fixed.
Yeah.
And I want to move on in the organisation and still, do that.
Actually, from the perspective of the corporate, so the organisation, actually there's two areas there that they need to focus on. I think too often businesses focus on coming up with a solution as a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to a problem, or they're looking for people that are struggling, whereas actually what they need to prevent are people even being attracted to a startup option. So creating conditions and an environment which will allow people to become what they want to become, not creating an environment which is just put in front of them because they're responding to someone that's struggling.
And often as well, it's easy. So if somebody says, I'm going to start up my own company, it's an easy explanation of, good for you. We're pleased you're going to pursue that. And when it comes down to that exit interview, is there anything we could have done to retain that person? Well, no, because they wanted to go and start up their own organisation. Want to start.
It's too late at that point.
It's too late, yeah. So, them going off and starting up their organisation is one thing, but we really need to track right back to understand why they decided to do that. And is there something the organisation could have done to retain them?
I think the solution sits in two forms. And for ease of explanation, we can call it micro and macro. At a micro level, this is very much at leadership level. So this is in day-to-day, in general conversation. This is about empowering, I think, leaders to feel confident and comfortable about talking openly with these individuals, acknowledging their reality, acknowledging the changes in their circumstances, acknowledging their blend, establishing what's important to those individuals, having them on, not just saying we have a PDP, but actually having them on a personal development program that is totally focused and bespoke to that individual.
And fit for purpose.
And fit for purpose. Managing workload, so ensuring that it doesn't fluctuate too much. So there's consistency with workload. So there's a stretch, but not too much. So it's sustainable. But just really understanding the key drivers, I think, of what of those individuals. And then on a macro level, I think that this is very much about collecting data. So really understanding why people are leaving your organisation to go and start up on their own, but not just taking that information and filing it away, actually understanding that data, looking for some themes and implementing the findings. In addition to that, around career plans. So if you know that somebody wants to rapidly progress up the career ladder, it's about constantly communicating that to them as well, and ensuring that there's a policy in place so everybody knows where they are on track at all times.
It's kind of seeing the critical path there, and it's quite often something that I think hiring managers commonly, and we've made this mistake ourselves in the past, is that you kind of assume that people realise their career paths because of the organisational structure. So if you're ambitious, you're going to go from that level to that level to that level. And actually people don't always want to go that route, or they can't actually see. So if I'm in this position, what do I need to do to go to the next level? And that's not gender specific. It doesn't matter whether, what gender you are. That needs to be outlined for people. I also think the moving through the generations here, where is Gen X? The women of Gen X would say, we don't really have a choice. We can't see this changing, so we're going to go and start our own organisations. Gen Y, I think, are much more demanding of it. They're just like, this isn't going to work for us. It has to change.
Absolutely. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago with the head of talent from a global household name who everybody would like to work for, and he was explaining that they have no problem in attracting, but they have so many people that want to work there. The problem that they have is attracting the creme de la creme, because this Gen Y and millennial pool have got such specific requirements for the environment that they're going to work in. So actually, as an attraction tool, if the companies aren't focusing on this on a macro level, on a micro level, actually this massively impacts the attraction of key talent as well, not just retaining and engaging.
Thank you once again for watching our video blog. If you'd like to comment on any of the discussion, please do get in touch.